The Honourable David Payne.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Having said that we support this bill being passed under urgency, I think it is important that we have an assurance from the Minister that the detail of every clause has been thoroughly checked by him, and that the Minister is assuring the House that there are no more errors or ambiguities being created by this legislation which is being fixed under urgency. Mr Chairman, the reason why I think it's proper that we seek that assurance from the Minister is that the Minister is asking the House to pass this under urgency without the normal protections that flow from a longer process. The protections that flow from a longer process is that persons who are in society, who are interested in these matters, get the chance to pore over the legislation and, with the time to properly consider it, reflect on whether it is clear and whether mistakes are being made. Mr Speaker, those in this sort of legislation, we would expect that the AA and various membership parts of the AA through the country would be poring over it. We would expect that the medical groups that are interested in accident safety would be looking at it. We would expect that someone in the Accident Compensation Corporation would perhaps be looking at it, checking at it. We would expect that someone who practiced law in these areas, or who was already looking at defending a charge that had been brought in respect of these speed limits, who thought that it was invalid, they would no doubt come along, or they might come along and point out to the committee as to why this was being done in an improper way, or why this was being done in a way that was not correct in detail. So for those reasons, because those normal checks and balances aren't there, because the Select Committee doesn't have the time to read through the legislation properly, because political parties don't have the time to hear from concerned constituents, concerned members as to it, it is all the more important that we can rely upon an assurance from the Minister that the Minister is satisfied that every clause in this bill is proper, that every clause in this bill is necessary for the stated purpose in the legislation, and that no further powers are being conferred by this legislation that are necessary to cure this defect in the speed limits that should have been put through a renewal process after 5 years that aren't being. So, Mr Chairman, I might leave this particular contribution for that and let the Minister respond to that.
And I'm going to correct my error and say that the question that we are debating at the moment is that Part 1 stand part.
Dennis O'Rourke.